o'clock on the dot in about 1960s. It was Van Romer residence, Taylor Road, Clifton Springs, New York, upstate New York. 6 kids in this household. For the last half hour, dinner smells were wafting up to teenage girl's room who was doing her homework. The teenage girl happened to be me. And what was wafting up to teenage daughter's room was her favorite dinner. And what was her favorite dinner? Probably the same as your favorite dinner some time ago, maybe. Baked chicken, mashed potatoes, gravy, 2 small sides of frozen vegetables, maybe peas and corn, and hopefully not lima beans. Who can handle lima beans? And lemonade, concentrate from the can, which has all the sugar and whatever it has in it, and 2 chocolate chip cookies for dessert because the teenage girl made them on Sunday for her family to eat, so she knew they were ready and waiting. But only 2 the mother would allow, probably only because otherwise they'd be gone in one sitting with a big family of 8. And so then the call came up the stairs. And what was it? You could hardly understand it, but we all knew what it meant. What was it? Come and eat. Come and eat. And so 6 pairs of feet, boom, 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 sort of stampeded down to the kitchen table, which happened to be a picnic table that the father made to accommodate his big family. So he was at the head, and 4 people at one side on these benches and 3 people on the other side. And I was the farthest away from Dad because I was also the noisiest and the most irritating. I can't even imagine that. And so my mother banned me from his side over to the way far corner of the picnic table, so I'd be the farthest away from him so I wouldn't bug him so much. And lo and behold, you get down to the picnic table, and what do we get to eat? Our favorite dinner. And mine was of the chicken because we all had our favorite parts. My sister Wendy liked the breast, and my brother Glenn liked the leg. You see how it's just seared into our brains? We know exactly who liked what. And I liked the wings. There was hardly any meat, but you know that crispy, fatty chicken skin, I guess, is what attracted me. And so my mom would stand there and divvy everything out because there were no extras. There were no leftovers. So we only had so much, but what we had of was our favorite part of the chicken. And of course, we had the lemonade, and thank goodness, no lima beans. And then, of course, for dessert, with 2 chocolate chip cookies. And we thought we were in heaven having 2 chocolate chip cookies at the end. Is there any wonder why we are so attached to these foods? They're seared into our brains. The smells. Can you just smell? I can just smell it right now. The smell and the taste and the feel at dinner time and the whole family setting. We're so conditioned and so grooved deep into our brains. We are conditioned from the time we come home from the hospital to eat certain foods. And our parents, our mothers, gave us those foods that they were taught were the best foods for their families. There was no fast food or pizza or just junk back then. It was mainly, and we didn't have the money to get that anyway, nor did most people. It was just basic home-cooked food, and they thought they were serving what? Balanced meals. So it's really tough to make a shift. To make a shift from what we were taught to eat and what we love to eat to the next level. And it took, I came to a desperate moment, a desperate pivotal moment. I think a lot of you know, it's in the introduction of my book, is when my youngest daughter had a weight problem. She probably had it most of her life. And literally, I was desperate. And so what did I do? I had to shift somehow because I knew I was responsible for feeding her. So I started reading and researching and everything. For whatever reason, after years and years and years and years of simmering on it, everything sort of gelled together. One of the books I read, which is the first time I really got it about the protein issue, because weren't we all raised? We have to have meat in order to get protein, and then we have to, not only that, we're supposed to have it 3 times a day. If you don't get it from meat, then please get it from eggs or cheese or milk. But you can't get it from fruits and vegetables. Never in our wildest dreams did we connect fruits and vegetables to protein. And so it wasn't until I read this book and heard his tapes. And this was now, my daughter's 27, this is when she was 11, so that was 16 years ago. And you know what? For whatever reason, I'd read it before, but for whatever reason, I got it. It takes a lot of time sometimes. I'm just saying that because it takes a lot of time sometimes. Be patient with yourself. And in here, he talks about the whole protein issue. And yes, he talks about how you can just eat plants to get enough protein. I was like, whoa, what a concept. And so as we're talking about that, understand that you have to be uncomfortable in order to be comfortable. So some of the things that I say tonight, and we're just going to whip through it. I'm just going to hit the highlights. There's a ton of information. We're going to hit the highlights just so you get an idea. You're not going to retain a lot because we just don't as people. But if you can just get a feel for it and know that there are resources you can go to, and now you can go to my book, and my patients said to me, if you're going to write a book, make it simple. No fluff. That's how I was told to write it, and that's easy for me because I'm pretty darn simple. So I like that. So it sort of sounds like I talk. But I have a chapter on protein. I have a chapter on the dairy issue. I have a chapter on the carbohydrates, and I have a chapter on the fats. And those are the 4 major questions that we all have. You can just open that up and read those, and then you can share that with other people. But the masters are here. I got the information from other people. I just made the message simple so that we all can get it. It doesn't have to be complicated. So let's start here with this myth. So we're going to talk about several myths. What does a myth mean? A myth means that it's not true. So when I have these big words up here, remember that it's not true, those things that I'm putting up here. So this is the first myth that we learned. We must eat meat to get our protein. Not true. It's as simple as that. It's just not true. It's a great big hoax. It's a big myth. I'm not saying that people don't believe it. We do believe it as a culture. The doctors believe it, the teachers believe it, and they still believe it if you go into the schools and go into nutrition classes. But the truth of it is, it's not true. Now, I can stand up here and give you all the authors and the researchers and all the people that tell us that. We don't have time to do that. So I guess you either take my word for it or go look and start researching for yourself, because the bottom line is, it's your body. It's your body. If you don't have your health, if you have the flu for 2 days, what does it do to your life? You have no life. What about if you have cancer, you're into chemotherapy and radiation, a huge sickness? What does it do to your life? You have no life. So we need to, be vigilant and pay attention and look at this, because the bottom line, it's really important to our bodies and our health and our lives. So let's look at this really simply, and I do it bullet by bullet in the book and in the playbook, which are these. Here, it's in a chapter, the protein issue, but here I do it in 2 paragraphs about the protein issue. So you could give it to somebody. If someone's trying to put you in a corner and you really don't know how to answer it, just look at it and just hand it to somebody and say, well, take a look at this. And they're still going to be, sort of defensive and all those things, because only because they don't know. They're not used to it. There's just new ideas. So they're scary, and we sort of get adamant and stuck, and we just want to stay where we are, and we don't want to have to look at things. We're all the same. I was the same way too. My daughter was heavy from the time she was little. Who's the one who fed her? I mean, how long did it take me to get a brain about this? So it takes time. It just takes time. So this is not true, and I'll walk you through a simple, logical explanation. Proteins for a lot of different things, and of all the nutrients out there, we are most, I believe, confused about protein. The major nutrients are what? Fats, carbohydrates, and protein. And yes, we need all those things. Not in the quantity that we get them, but we need all those things. But protein, I think, we're so confused about that, because we were raised, you have to have your protein, you have to have your meat in order to have your protein. If you don't get it from your meat, you're going to get from fish or dairy or the cheese and the milk or the beans. You have to have beans, and that's not even true either. And you have to mix and match. Well, that's not true either. So there's a lot of things that are untruths that we need to sort of look at again and look at it for yourself, and then relearn it, and then figure out whether you want to incorporate it into your own life. And only you can do that as an individual into your own life. So here's the logic. What is protein for? It's for many different things in the body, but mainly what do most of us know that protein's for? It's for growth. Growth of the cells. So it's for growth. When do we grow the most? 0 to 2. What's the best food for 0 to 2-year-olds? Breast milk. Absolutely, breast milk. How much protein does breast milk have it for this baby that's growing so quickly? 4.5% protein. Actually, 4.5 to 5% protein. I have a 5% protein in my poster, but it's really 4.5% protein. Oranges are 8% protein. The World Health Organization says you only need 4.5 to 5% protein. That's it. And that's high. I mean, that's for a growing baby. They're saying that for an adult just to give everybody sort of like a leeway there. But there's other organizations, major organizations says you only need 2 or 3% protein in your diet. Interesting, isn't it? So let's look. When do we grow the most? So when you're in doubt, think about the great big baby. That's when we're growing the most. And if we're eating our best food, it's breast milk, and that has 5% protein. So look at the great big baby. When do they grow the most? Why do adults need more protein than babies? I can't think of a reason. There is no reason. Yes, we do need protein, but we don't need that much, and we can get it from our plant foods. So look at the baby. Now here, brown rice has 8% protein. Remember what the World Health Organization says, 4.5 to 5% protein. Oatmeal has 15% protein. Kidney beans have 26% protein. You don't even need that much. Spinach has 49% protein. Lettuce, 34% protein. Cucumbers, 24% protein. Potatoes, 11% protein. Oranges, 8% protein. Cantaloupe, 9% protein. It's kind of that simple. And do you have to mix and match? No. Do you have to mix and match? If we had to mix and match and have certain things with certain things, we would have been wiped out as a race millions of years ago. Do you think they mixed and matched back then? No. They got what they could get. They did not mix and match. They got what they could get. So we don't have to mix and match. Our body does that for us. Our body is so much smarter than us. We just have to give it credit. You just have to give it a variety of plants. Can you choose to eat meat? Absolutely, but remember, it's a choice. It's not a necessity. That's all. So if you get nothing else, just remember, it's a choice. It's not a necessity. But don't we need, here's another myth, don't we need meat protein because it's superior to plant protein? Protein is protein is protein is protein. It doesn't matter if it comes from a plant or an animal. It's protein. And your body can mix and match all the proteins together in how you need it. Have you ever seen anybody with a protein deficiency? I mean, look around. We don't look like we have protein deficiencies. In fact, we get way too much protein, and that's one reason why we're so sick, is because we have too much animal protein. The difference between animal and plant protein is animal protein comes with what else? Fat and cholesterol and whatever else is in there. Antibodies and contaminants and those kinds of things. Where plants are what? Are naturally, almost all of them, low in fat. How much cholesterol? 0. You're going to have high cholesterol if you're having 0 cholesterol, if you're eating it, no cholesterol? Likely not. Oh, but here's another myth. But don't I need more protein for strength and energy? You see, these are just basic, simple concepts, but you know what? If you get the basics, you got it. You just got it. So, because people, listen to the buzz out there tomorrow when you're around. And people talk about it all the time, at least I hear it all the time, that we need protein for our strength and we need protein for energy. Not so. All you have to do is look in the basic nutrition book. As far as strength goes, where do elephants get their strength for their great big muscles and their great big bodies? We're little compared to them. Where do elephants look to nature for simple answers? Where do elephants get their protein for their strength? Plants, and not a huge variety. It's just amazing what can happen. And look at cows and horses and giraffes. There's so many animals in the kingdom. They get plenty of protein from their plants. Well, if they can do it, so can we. Can we choose to eat something else? Absolutely. It's not about, guilt or any of those things. It's a matter of what? It's a choice. It's always, always a choice. And as far as the energy goes, and I know some of you are such avid students, what are our best sources of energy? Carbohydrates from unrefined plants. And the energy you have today, right now, comes from where? Yes. Oh, you guys are so good. I'm so proud of you. And so from the unrefined carbohydrates that you ate yesterday gives you energy today. The coffee that you're drinking gives you a buzz. It gives you a drug high. That's not energy. That's like sort of fake. But our sustainable energy that keeps us alive comes from the carbohydrates that we eat. And what are our unrefined carbohydrates for the most part? Are our fruits and vegetables. So when people come up to me and say, oh, Dr. Leslie, I've given up carbs, and I go, that's too bad, you're going to die soon. They go, and I said, because fruits and vegetables are carbs. See, we're so confused. We sort of amassed them all together. You know, that's sort of what the media does and that what we kind of do in our brains. But no, it's certain carbs are the ones we need for our energy. So you compare your body to a car. The protein is like the engine in a car. The carbs are the gasoline that make the engine run. Do you need them both? Sure do. So how much more carbohydrates do you think? See, we're thinking logically, because I want to teach you how to think logically, because I can't always be there buzzing in your ear. So think logically. So how much more gasoline do you need for your car than you do need for the engine? For the components for the engine, they're pretty stable, right? You don't need much, but you need a lot of gasoline. So your carbohydrates in your diet should be at least 80%. That's how we get our energy. So as folks come in, because I live in a retirement community and I have an older practice, people are tired. But they're tired even if they're younger. One reason why they're tired is why? They don't eat the right foods, and they don't exercise, and they don't sleep enough. I mean, that's sort of basic. So here you go. How do you get energy? Through carbohydrates. Sweet potatoes are 92% carbohydrates. Perfect food. Grapefruit, 90% carbohydrate. Oranges, 88%. Brown rice, 87%. Wheat flour, 76%. Oatmeal, 69%. And carrots, 36%. It's amazing how many carbohydrates we get in all of our plant foods. How many carbohydrates do you have in meat? None. So when people go on the Atkins diet, there's a lot of complaints. And by the way, you can get very sick on that diet. Why? Because they don't give you real food. You know, they don't give you fruits and vegetables that give you life. And so when you're getting from most of your diet 0% carbohydrates, you know what? You get 0 energy foods. So people get very fatigued and tired. After a while, you just can't do it anymore. So that's an important concept to remember. Here's another myth. Eating chicken and fish will lower my cholesterol. I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but my patients continue to come in to me and say their doctor tells them that they eat chicken and fish, it'll lower their cholesterol. I don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say to that. I mean, it's pure ignorance. Ignorance means we just don't know. You know, we just don't have the knowledge. It doesn't mean we're dumb. I mean, doctors are very smart. But what it does mean, let me get out of your way. But what it does mean is we just don't know. But at the same time, we're in a position of authority. We're healthcare professionals. We need to give good information about health. That is not good information. So we need to educate them. We need to educate them and not be afraid. Not be afraid and say, doctor, why don't you take a look at this book? Whatever book that may be, because there are lots of books on it that will talk to you about that, about cholesterol. But look at this. Pork is in a 3.5 ounce serving. Pork, it has 90 milligrams of cholesterol. Beef has 85. Chicken has 85. Same. Turkey is 82. Lamb is 82. Trout 73, and milk has 49. So again, it's a choice. Do we want to put that waxy substance into our body that sticks in our veins and causes strokes and heart disease and all kinds of other kinds of problems? Again, it's a choice. And I wish sometimes we could just open up our bodies and see what we're putting into it and immediately afterwards, because all of this, if you read the book by Caldwell Esselstyn, who was a heart surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic, which is one of the most reputable hospitals in the world. It's amazing how he reverses heart disease and is able to get this stuff out of the arteries and the veins by his protocol. And what's his protocol? No animal products. And he won't work with anybody unless they do that. And he works with the people that have already had major surgeries and bypasses and have been left to die. And he has never, if they follow his protocol, he has never not reversed it. If they do that. It's powerful stuff. Reading is very important. So there you are. So that's you go into your medical doctor, you get checked, and you're looking at your cholesterol. What's interesting is we're pouring the cholesterol medication in at the same time we're eating all this cholesterol. It seems to me it's pretty silly. And so our doctors need to be telling us not to do that because we listen to them, and we need to be telling them, doctor, maybe I better not be doing this. So you just start looking at exploring those kinds of things. The fact of it is that animal products give us way too much protein. So if you look at how much protein they give us, animal protein, eggs is 33% protein, milk is up there, beef is up there, chicken is 61% protein, and turkey is 68% protein. It's too much protein. Do you know why? Because we do not store protein in our bodies. We do not store proteins in our body. All our body can handle is 15% protein. That's it. And so then if the body doesn't store it, what has to happen? It has to get rid of it. So how does it get rid of it? It gets rid of it through the kidneys and through the excretory system. Well, that overworks our kidneys. That's one reason why our bodies wear out too soon, is because we're eating this stuff that's really toxic to us. And the animal protein is toxic to us according to this man. I've been reading his articles and his works since the 1980s. And he finally, I think it was like 3 years ago now, he came out with this book. You have to read the book. It's not as simple, it's not as fun and up his mind, but you have to read the book because then you're able to get the material. And he makes he's a scientist. He's not a crazy chiropractor and squim. He's a scientist. And he's a wonderful, humble man who grew up on a dairy farm. And he's a nutritionist, a PhD at Cornell University with a nutrition degree and whatever. He's an amazing man. And he went to do this research to prove that we need animal protein to be healthy. You know what happened? He did a 180-degree shift after his research. That's pretty admirable. So now he's a huge advocate that animal protein, he said, is the most toxic chemical, the most common toxic chemical that Americans eat. That's quite a statement. Do you ever hear that on the news? No, because, I don't know, you might not have any sponsors left. So am I saying that's truth? I'm saying look at it. It's pretty compelling when you look at it. So actually animal protein has too much protein. And too much protein can cause you huge problems. But do we connect huge problems with too much protein? Probably not. And it's animal protein. It's not just protein. Our bodies react differently to animal protein than they do the protein. And part of it is the protein, but part of it is because of everything that comes in the animal with the animal protein. So protein, too much protein causes what? Liver and kidney disorders. Why? Because we're overusing them. We're overusing them. Let's not overuse them. Let's try to live as long as possible. Let's add days to our lives and years to our days, and oh my gosh, and life to your years. Let's do that. We have to do it consciously. It causes arthritis and gout, too much protein, because you get protein that builds up what? In your joints. I've had a lot of people in my office, and along with chiropractic, if they change their diet, it's incredible what happens to what? Pain in their joints. It's miraculous. It's amazing how we are what we eat. I mean, such a simple concept. It's such a simple statement again. But it's really true. We really are what we eat. So it also causes digestive problems because proteins are hard to digest, animal protein. And of course, it's directly connected to heart disease, not just the fat and the cholesterol, according to T. Colin Campbell. But it's also just because of the protein that people get breast cancer and heart disease, and other things too. But those are two of the majors. So interesting stuff. Osteoporosis, major cause of osteoporosis. I'll explain that in a little while. Also highly connected in with what? Cancers, breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, and pancreatic cancer. You know, again, it goes back to, we all know what prevents these things. What prevents those things? What do we need to eat to prevent those things? Fruits and vegetables. What prevents cancer? Fruits and vegetables. So we just kind of have to go back to the basics. So you go back to the 10-10 plan, which is what? Fill up on your fruits and vegetables first. Don't say you're not going to eat something ever again. That's so ridiculous. You know, give yourself that 20% wiggle room, which is in my program. But please do eat your fruits and vegetables first. So the shift, the only shift you really have to make is what? Because you're not going to give anything up anymore. We're not going to go there. That's deprivation, and then we feel guilty and we sneak, and that whole thing, and we never make a really a shift in our lifestyle. So let's just make one shift. So make one commitment. So if you have a pen, you write it down. So the one commitment is this. You're going to shift your meals and fill up on the fruits and vegetables, and then you can have your meat. Just do that. So the one shift is, it doesn't mean you're going to give anything up. You're still going to make the same meal, see? So it's not that hard. All you're doing is making a shift. So for dinner, if you're going to have chicken tomorrow night for dinner, have the chicken that you're going to make for your family, but also make sure you have enough vegetables with that. And first eat your vegetables. You can't eat them all together now because we just can't do that because we're not used to eating more vegetables. I mean, you really have to have a little simple system. So the simple system is eat your salad first, eat your vegetables second, eat a more filling vegetable like a potato or yam or squash, and put avocado on it, not butter, not all the fat, and then if you're still hungry, then have the chicken. So you're automatically going to have this much chicken and be full and satisfied instead of this much because you're sending your meal around the meat the way our mothers taught us to. What's for dinner, Mom? Chicken. Yeah. What's for dinner, Mom? Chicken. What's for dinner, Mom? Stew. What's for dinner, Mom? Hamburgers. What's for dinner, Mom? Soup. We were never happy with that. What's for dinner, Mom? Spaghetti. What's for dinner, Mom? Pork. What's for dinner, Mom? Roast beef. Do they all sound familiar? Yeah, because we wrapped our meals all around the meat. So we're making a shift here, and it's a simple shift, but at the same time, you have to do it mindfully and consciously, otherwise it won't happen. It's way too easy to fall back into what we have been eating. So, here we go. This was information that I got in 2000, so now it's not, literally 9 years later. You can tell how long I've been doing this. Meat, according to the United States Public Health Service. This is not from me. This is from what our government tells us, and this has to be extraordinarily conservative. Meat is the direct cause of this. That many deaths. Do you hear that on the news? No. It's interesting how they pick up this little snippets about how, coffee's good for you, and chocolate's good for you, and margaritas are good for you, whatever they say. And then Americans love to hear good stuff about the bad stuff that they do. That's not an original. I've heard that from other people. I mean, literally, we love that. And so when someone comes in and says, Dr. Leslie, what do you think about coffee? What do you think about chocolate? I'm like, do you believe that? Do you actually believe that? Just look at the package on the chocolate. You tell me that that's good for you. It is not good for you because you cannot eat that chocolate without what? Sugar, or usually hydrogenated fat and salt and whatever else they put in it. So anyway, so that's pretty extraordinary numbers. And so when in doubt about the protein issue, you could go back to, like on page 93 in my book. So I go back. This is the most brilliant thing I did in the books that I wrote was this. Just these 2 pages. Did I know it at the time? No. But I know it now because I've shown it to enough people and trade shows and all that kind of thing. This is the thing. It's on page 93 and 94. And what is it called? The 4 most common questions and the common sense answers. So if you get confused about the protein issue, you don't even have to read the whole chapter, which is only about 5 pages, and it's pretty simple. I'm not like T. Colin Campbell, trust me. I'm like Leslie Van Romer, and I'm very sort of simple the way I say it. But if you don't eat meat, where do you get your protein is the first question, and I have 3 paragraphs. It's right there. And you know what the best part is? It just makes sense. You don't even have to have the research. It just makes sense. You know what? If something makes sense to your guts, I think it's truth. So if you get confused about the protein issue, just think about the elephants. Where do elephants get their protein? That's all you need to do when we get confused. Just say, okay, where do the elephants get their protein? Can you choose to eat other things besides plant foods? Absolutely. Do you have to, though? No. It should be actually a treat. It should be a condiment. It should not be the center of our lives, because the reason why it is the center of our lives is because we were conditioned that way, and it is causing us to die early and to become unhealthy earlier as well. I don't know about you, but I like living. And I want to stay around here for my children and actually grandchildren. My youngest daughter is expecting twins in June. So we're all, we all have family and people that love us. Let's stick around for our families because they want us here. So if we don't think we're worth it, you know what? Ask your family. I'm sure they would disagree with you. So let's go on. You thought you were done, didn't you? I tricked you. Now, this is a delicate subject, milk. It's the first food that we ever had. We are emotionally attached to dairy products. It reminds us of our mothers and babies and all those things that are good, that are just like light and white and goodness. I mean, we just associate milk with everything wholesome because we were conditioned to think that way. And when I was little, I kid you not, I thought milk must be good for you, even though I never liked it. Because I was always allergic to it, but I didn't know it at the time. But I couldn't stand it. I couldn't understand how my brothers and sisters could sit around and just drink all this milk. I was like, ooh. And my mother would make me. I was like, ooh. Well, I was also stuffed up my whole life. Stuffed up here my whole life and never knew exactly why until I stopped eating dairy products. When I stopped eating dairy products, guess what disappeared? The sniff. You know the sniff? You wake up in the morning. You wake up in the morning, and then at noontime, you sniff, 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 and all day long, you sniff, sniff, sniff. At night, you're probably worse. You sniff, 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 and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up, and you sniff, sniff, sniff. What is it all about? You have too much mucus. The reason why there's too much mucus is because dairy products is highly mucus forming. And so what is the mucus all about when we have mucus? It's our body's way of getting rid of toxins. Now, naturally, our body's supposed to be able to take care of toxins without us sniffing and having it in our head all the time. But you know what? If you have it every day, which is the way all of us were raised, after a while, our body can't do that anymore. So what I learned was after I stopped eating dairy products myself, the sniff went away. And all of a sudden, my head cleared up. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've had a sinus headache all my life. I didn't even know it. Sinus headache meaning I just had pressure here and pressure here. But I didn't know it. When you have something your whole life, do you know that you've got it? Not really. Even though I talked it, I didn't really get it until I sort of just expanded that for my own life. But we were raised with what? We were raised with this myth that milk does the body good. And what are the other slogans? You know what they are? Yeah, what was that? Nature's most perfect. I mean, we all know them because we've heard them since we were little, right? Nature's most perfect food. Milk does a body good. Milk needed for strong bones and teeth. And when I was little, I thought, milk is white, teeth are white. There must be some connection there. And that's what I thought as a kid. Milk is a natural. Remember that? Milk is a natural. You never outgrow your need for milk. They had to pull some of these ads. One of the ads they had to pull was Nature's Perfect Food because it's not true. They had to pull that. And then they had this campaign about it being a weight-reducing thing. And they had to pull some of the things that they said about that because, bottom line is they weren't true. But it's still already out there. They put it out there and it's still there, and it just reinforces what we were raised to believe. That not only should we center our meal around meat, but we also need milk on top of the meat in order to get our calcium and our cheese. And of course, milk was one thing that was difficult to stomach for me, but cheese is a huge hook. It was for me. It probably still is. I just make sure I don't have cheese around me because if I had cheese around me, I can't guarantee what I would do. It's like I trust myself, but I don't tempt myself. My little motto: I trust myself, I don't tempt myself. So I don't have it in my house or I'm not around it. Like the same with cookies. I trust myself, I don't tempt myself. So do I have them in my house? I don't have them in my house. So the dairy industry has really gone on this. In 1996, they started their most successful campaign, and it hasn't stopped yet. And now it's 13 years later. What's the campaign? Got milk. There it is. They put celebrities and athletes and these famous people up there, and they put a plastic, waxy mustache on them, which is not even milk. And then what? They're trying to convince us that, this is what they're trying to convince us of, that we can look like this. We can look like that if we have one of these mustaches. That's what they're trying to convince us, that we can look like that. Or we could perform like that. You see? Or, I'm glad he's on this for obvious reason. Who's this? Michael Phelps. He's sort of fallen from his throne, hasn't he? Which is sad, actually. But anyway, there he is. And here's a young rookie basketball player. I don't know who he is because I'm not into that. But here is another skater. Look at it. It's all over the place. I mean, you can look at USA Today almost any day. Look at this. Phil. Dr. Phil. We see this all over. Why? Because this is a very successful campaign. They make a lot of money from this. So we need to look at this, though, and say, what happens when we drink milk and eat dairy products? So there's a Got Milk campaign. Let's look at milk. Any dairy products is what I consider milk. Milk. Let's look at the fat in milk. It has fat, it has cholesterol, it has milk sugar, and it has milk protein, right? So the fat. Even 3% milk is, do you know this? 3% milk is what? 50% fat by calories. 50% fat. 1 to 2% milk is how much fat? 24 to 33% fat. And skim milk is what? 4 to 7% fat. So you're still getting the fat.
No fat.
That's skim milk. No fat. It still has fat in it. You can't get it all out. And the bottom line is the cholesterol is always the same. So you're still getting the cholesterol. That's in the fat. Or that's in the fat. What about the cholesterol? You still get the cholesterol. What about the milk sugar? Do you know that 70% of the world is allergic to milk sugar? That's the lactose. The lactose in milk. You know, you sort of hear this and people say they're lactose intolerant and they sort of throw this around. Bottom line is 70% of the world has lactose intolerance. Do you know if you're that person? Probably not. It causes what? When you're lactose intolerant, indigestion, all kinds of different digestive problems, which also mean, that cannot be good for you. And so, what about the milk protein? Just the milk protein alone. The milk protein causes, quote unquote, little problems. Little problems like allergies and asthma and colds and bronchitis and pneumonia and sinus problems and skin problems and bedwetting and fatigue and PMS. Those are what I call little problems. They are not necessarily little problems, but there are some big problems with the milk protein. Big problems that's connected with milk protein. Heart disease. That's a big problem. Kidney inflammation that turns into kidney disease. Artery inflammation. That's inflammation of the arteries, and that turns into what? Diseased arteries. Anemia. Where people say they're drinking milk because they're going to get enough iron. No. It's the opposite. What you get in the milk binds the iron, so you can't use the iron in milk. Rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, diabetes. There's a connection between diabetes 1, especially when children get it, and the milk protein. So these all have big stories, and we don't need to go into it, but what we need to do is just relook at this. Why are we drinking this? So the next time you have a glass of milk, say, is this really worth it to me? And it may be really worth it to you. Then drink it. But at least drink it knowing what you're drinking and what you're doing to your body. I somehow wish we could better connect what we're eating to what really happens to our bodies. We are what we eat. It's such a simple, beautiful statement. And we would be so much better in every way. I promise you, if you center your meals on fruits and vegetables, you will notice a difference in a week. In a week. You will notice a difference in a week. You just need to start shifting in that direction. And not only that, what does milk have in it? I know when Aaron read the manuscript to my book, in my book I talk about how the government allows so much pus to be in your dairy products. And it's a lot. In other words, because what cows get infections. And when cows get infections, what happens when you get an infection? You get pus. And so the government allows so much pus to be in the dairy products. And so Erin calls me up and she goes, "Pus, Mom, you never told me that there was pus in dairy products. You never told me that." I think that was one of the major factors, and I think that she would agree, that made her shift from not eating so much dairy. I mean, she's not absolutely perfect, but she's close. She's probably 95% or maybe more dairy-free, especially when she's living with me. It's great. I get to watch over her. So look at all the things that can be in your milk. E. coli, salmonella, tuberculosis, listeria, which is a bacteria, bovine leukemia. And one of the resources says in 60% of all dairy herds, they have bovine leukemia. Does that mean it can be transferred to human leukemia? No. You know, I don't know that it can jump that species barrier, but who wants to drink that and eat that? So you start thinking about what you're really getting in that. Bovine AIDS virus, 60% of the herds have either one of these two things, not to mention the pesticides and the antibiotics, and even those dairy products and meat products that are what? Organic or hormone-free. Think about this with your common sense. Are we hormone-free as people? No, we're full of hormones. Are cows and chickens and dairy products ever hormone-free? Never. They're never. They come with a lot of hormones, and that hormone is connected to hormonally driven cancers. And what are the hormonally driven cancers? Breast cancer. Prostate. Prostate has the most research out there about the connection between milk, dairy products, and prostate cancer. You get prostate cancer, you have prostate surgery, you're impotent. If that's not a concern, then that's not a concern. Then you keep doing what you're doing. But if that's a concern, it's just something to look at. Do you hear that from your healthcare professionals? Probably not. They might not even know. So it's prostate cancer, breast cancer, colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, and also ovarian cancer. So that's something to really look at. That's just the dairy. That's not on top of the animal protein and the meat that we eat with all the fat and the cholesterol. And that's not on top of the sugar and the salt and those kinds of things. And that's not on top of the fast food that we eat and the sugar that we eat and the salt that we eat. That's just one part of our diet. No wonder we're so sick in this country. We don't have to be. We don't have to be. Here's a myth. And I'm going to do a whole workshop on this later in the year. I don't know when exactly it is, but it's all on osteoporosis, so it's a myth. But if we don't drink milk or eat cheese, we don't get enough calcium, we're told. And we are also told that osteoporosis is a calcium deficiency disease. We assume that we're getting osteoporosis because we're not getting enough calcium. Every one of us in this room eats enough calcium. And probably most of us have way too much calcium. So osteoporosis, there's no such thing as a calcium deficiency disease. Look in the journals. Look in the medical journals. There's no such thing as a calcium deficiency disease. What is osteoporosis? It's an imbalance. It's an imbalance where we're eating those foods and those things that leach the calcium out of our bones. That's what it's all about. And you cannot make up for that leaching by eating more calcium. It doesn't work that way in our body. So if you're leaching calcium from your bones, you're creating osteoporosis. And the time when we get osteoporosis for women, the deciding years when we get osteoporosis is when do you think? Guess. Menopause, premenopause, 30s. In your 30s. Do you know why? Because by the time we're in our 30s, we amass a certain amount of bone mass. And if we haven't amassed that, guess what? As we start losing, because we do start losing, and especially because of our habits, then that's how osteoporosis is caused. So by the time they pick up that you have osteoporosis, women, you probably have had it for 30 years. You can't tell me that those drugs are going to make up for 30 years worth of bone leaching. Or not 30 years of bone leaching, 60 years of bone leaching. Because what we've eaten as the American culture, most of those foods do what? They leach the calcium from our bones. So we never amass a certain amount of calcium. Because those foods that I'm talking about that leach calcium from your bones, what they do is create acidity in your body. And you don't have to know all this, but remember in chemistry way back in that horrible class, most of us had chemistry, and they talked about acid and base. You kind of sort of remember that? If our bodies are acid, by the way, cancer grows in an acid environment. It cannot grow in an alkaline environment. Foods that we eat create an acid environment, like the meat and the dairy and the sugar and the salt and all that stuff. If we have acidity in our body has to pull a base to neutralize the acidity, otherwise literally we would die. So what's the base? The calcium. The calcium. So we just need to eat what? Those foods that create an alkaline environment. Guess what those foods are? Fruits and vegetables. Literally fruits and vegetables. Is it grain? No. It's fruits and vegetables. So we go back to that one question that sort of motivated me the most to make changes in my life and to write the book, which was, okay, Leslie, all this information is so confusing, it's overwhelming. Ask yourself one question: what are the foods that prevent cancer? Fruits and vegetables. What are the foods that prevent osteoporosis? Fruits and vegetables. What are the foods that prevent heart disease and stroke and diabetes? Fruits and vegetables. So it seems to me it's a logical kind of a thing to fill up on fruits and vegetables and then eat your other foods if you still choose to. But it's a way to transition to the next level. These are the things that take calcium out of our bones. Again, we're going to talk about this later in the year. So we spent a whole time talking about this. The caffeine, sugar, salt, soft drinks, alcohol, smoking, drugs. Prednisone is a huge one. Also like Tums. In the locker room, happened like a year or two ago. In the locker room, there was, you have these lockers, and two people over there, and I was over here, two people over there, women were saying, oh, I take my Tums every day to get my calcium. And the other woman says, oh, I do too. That's what my doctor told me to do. I mean, I felt like leaping over the lockers and say, what? Because antacids leach calcium out of your bones. You can't add calcium in there and think that the calcium you're going to add is going to make up for leaching calcium out of your bones that antacids do. But I guarantee that most doctors and most people don't know that. So we just need to learn it ourselves. They can't know everything. They do really well with diagnosing diseases and those kinds of things, but they can't know everything. So we have to know more because it's our bodies. But what robs calcium from the bones? The biggest robber of calcium is what? Animal protein. Bar none. The biggest robber of calcium from the bones is animal protein. Why do you think that the 4 countries that eat the most dairy products have the most osteoporosis? And those 4 countries, there's actually 5, are what? Finland. Yes. How'd you know that? Finland's one, Sweden's another, Great Britain, the United States, and New Zealand. We eat the most dairy products and we have the most osteoporosis. So something's wrong. Something smells here. It doesn't quite gel. It doesn't quite fit, does it, when you start looking at the statistics? There's lots of statistics out there. And there's studies here. This is an old study, but there's newer studies than this. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, February 1985, the dairy industry decided they were going to prove that we need to drink milk to get enough calcium. Well, they figured out the opposite. So they haven't done a study since. Why would we do that? So what they figured out was the women who had 3 8-ounce glasses of milk, 14 milligrams of calcium a day through milk, and then some women didn't have any milk. The women who had the most milk had the most osteoporosis. And then the nurses study, and many of you probably heard that, the Harvard nurses study, 75,000 people were studied. They found out the same thing. The women that had the most fractures from osteoporosis were the ones that ate the most dairy products. Are there other things in there that come into play? Absolutely. I'm not saying it's that simple, but I'm saying it's kind of that simple. You just look at that and say, well, I guess the cure-all wasn't what? Drinking milk. And as a matter of fact, it might be hurting us. It's just something to look at. So the prevention of osteoporosis is the opposite. You avoid animal protein, you avoid the calcium robbers, you eat 10 fresh fruits a day, 10 fresh vegetables a day, you do weight-bearing exercise, 1 hour. If you're not there, then do 15 minutes. I mean, just do what you're going to do and be successful at. And when, again, we're going to talk about this at another time, so we don't need to belabor the point now. But if you ever get confused, do you ever get confused with all the food stuff out there? Isn't it confusing? Yeah. So what you do is kind of don't listen to anybody, including me, I guess that means. So don't listen to anybody, and you just go into yourself, and you just go into your own guts and say, does this really make sense? Yes, I like this, and I'm going to continue to eat this, but does it really make sense? What I've been told about it all my life. And you look at nature, and you look around, and you start really listening to yourself. You know what? You know way more than you think you know. But we just have to think about it more logically and trust our instincts. But because we have been conditioned a certain way, so it's just a matter of re-looking at things and trusting our instincts. You know, the bottom line is this. You look to nature for answers. Where do cows get their calcium? Where do milking cows get their calcium? They don't drink milk, do they? They don't drink milk. The only time a cow drinks milk was when they're baby calves. And baby calves in a year grow up to like 800 pounds. It seems to me that might not be the best option. So if you don't get calcium from milk, where do we get our calcium from? Oh, look at the cows. If I see any of you guys out in the field with the cows out there, I'm going to know that you really were listening. So where do the cows get their calcium? From plants, because plants are the most direct way of getting calcium. Are you told that? No. We think we have to go up the food chain and get it from what? Animals. We don't have to get it from animals. We can get it from plants. The same place that elephants get their calcium for the great big bones, and cows and horses. Well, we can do that too. You don't have to go out in the field and munch on grass. But we have a huge variety of what? Fruits and vegetables. So that's really important. So pretty basic, isn't it? It's pretty simple. The hard part is this. The hard part is having knowledge, and you know in your guts it makes sense to you, but it's really hard, it's a challenge to make that leap from what we know to be truth and be able to really incorporate it into our lives on a day-to-day basis. It does not happen in a day, in a week, in a month, or a year. It takes a lifetime. But you know what? You just start somewhere. So here you are tonight. You know, in January 23rd, or February 23rd, I'm behind. February 23rd, on Monday night, and here we are. This is a good pivotal moment to start. So you say, here I am. I'm going to start right here. No, I'm not going to be perfect. And no, I'm not going to eat exactly like Dr. Leslie. It doesn't matter. That so doesn't matter. What matters is that you start here, and then you just start shifting to the next level. And if you can just make a pact with yourself, you're just going to keep going. And the only slip up is to give up. You can't slip up. You're not slipping up. You just get off track because we're human beings. So the only slip up is to give up. If you give up, that's slipping up. But if you don't give up, you just get off track for a day, a week, a year, it doesn't matter. Just make the shift and get back on track. And just start, as you start planning, start sending your meals around what? Around fruits and vegetables. The message is pretty simple and really clear. You start fruits and vegetables. Those are 3 rules. You fill up on fruits and vegetables first. And then if you want, you eat grains and beans. And then if you want, you eat the other foods. Number 2, you stop eating when your brain is full. When your brain says you're full and satisfied. And what's the third one? Everybody loves that. What's the third one? Wiggle. And what does wiggle mean? No, it doesn't mean exercise. It doesn't mean exercise. I love it because I can trick people all the time. But some of you know what wiggle means. It means you can cheat. You can cheat. But it's really not cheating. It's really just being you. It's just being a human being. You know you're not going to be perfect. So 80% of the time when you can plan and prepare and make meals that are really wholesome and good for you, which means that they're centering around fruits and vegetables, then please do so. And then 20% of the time when you're not here, you're on vacation, you're going out, someone's coming over, you know what? That's when you get to wiggle. And so when someone comes in my office and they go, Dr. Leslie, I wiggled last night, tee-hee, tee-hee, tee-hee. And then they say, it doesn't matter though, this morning I got it right back on my fruit. So just wiggle. So just have a goal, have a vision for yourself, where you want to go, and then figure out some action steps, how are you going to get there, and just allow yourself some wiggle room, and just don't ever give up. You know why? Because you're important. You're important. You're important to me. You're important to people around you. You're important to your families. And if you don't think you're worth it, worth really making changes, then you know what? Just ask someone that loves you and say, you know what? Am I worth it? Is it worth it to really make this effort? And it is worth it, and they'll tell you that. And it is a huge effort. So I can't tell you how deeply touching it is that you would join me and listen to some of the things that I have learned over the years. If you weren't here, I wouldn't be here. And that's the bottom line. And it really does take a team. It takes a team in order to make changes in ourselves. It takes a team to make changes in the people around us. It takes a team to really impact the world. And really, if we all go out there as the warriors and really start working on ourselves, then we just start as a team changing people one by one. But it starts with you first. So I so appreciate you coming. Thank you so much. And don't forget our next presentation, which is April 6th. And that's the top 10 killer foods. So we'll talk about those a little bit. So I appreciate, thank you for coming.